All right, so I just sat down with Kevin McClelland, and he is incredible. He has athletic development games on Instagram, Play Boost on Instagram. He's got a deck of cards for dads to play with their kids at home. Wow, it's everything I've been looking for as a dad and more. As a phys ed teacher who works with a ton of students every week, I'm tired when I get home and I want to keep playing with my kids, but sometimes I just don't know what to do. Kevin talks to me in this episode of Just Call Dad about what we can do as dads at home with our kids in as simple as 5, 10, or 15 minutes a day. We can create a space for our kids to feel purposefully playing together. We can feel that meaningful movement. Kevin is an incredible dad, but also an incredible person creating opportunities for you and for me to play with our kids. All right, so check out this episode that I did with Kevin. And remember, Just Call Dad is all about this one concept. We are trying to create a team of dads who's just a call away. You don't have to be an expert in everything. So let's find somebody to call. And today, let's call Kevin and talk about how we can move better with our kids and maybe, just maybe, become the type of dad that we have always dreamed of being today. All right, you got this today. If you're not having a good day, remember, always stop and pause, take a breath, take 5, and just reset because your day starts now. All right, enjoy today's episode. Welcome to today's episode of Just Call Dad. We are sitting down today to talk movement and meaningful movement with my new friend, McCllend. There we go, McCllend. Come on, help me out here, Kevin.
McCllend, you got
McCllend.
it.
All right, we got this. So I already told him, I said, as an educator, I'm going to make some errors. There it is. All right, kids, it's okay to make mistakes. All right, so Kevin and I, we share this love of movement together. We're both dads. We both work together with our kids to try to help them move better, move healthier. And I work with kids in a phys ed classroom. And so I found Kevin and his content on his page, Athletic Development Games. And Kevin has a lot of really cool games that I was intrigued by as a phys ed teacher, but also intrigued by as a dad, because I'm always looking for better ways to move with my kids in more creative ways. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Yeah, doing well. Happy to be on here.
Awesome. All right, so next time we meet, I'm going to try to pronounce your name right. But for me, I think a lot of times as we do this podcasting, I'm learning one of the hardest things to do is to talk to somebody who's far away. So Kevin, I'm in Ohio. I'm working with students in Ohio. Where are you at, Kevin?
Yeah, so I'm in London, Ontario, Canada, which is about 2 hours away from Toronto.
Awesome.
Canada.
I see you're a Blue Jays fan and a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's right.
Awesome. I like the Browns, so our team loses all the time, so I get to teach my kids emotional development through how we respond to losses. So I'm glad your teams are at least good at sports there for sure. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about your dad story. Like, who are you as a dad? What does that look like for you day to day? And how you got started with really what you're passionate about now?
Yeah, so I've always loved kids. When my sister had a couple boys, I loved playing with them, and that was they're about maybe 6, 7 years older than my kids. So I enjoyed that. And then when I had kids of my own, I knew that one of the things I would love to do is to play with them. And sure enough, when they were born and they were old enough to move around and stuff, I was down on the ground playing with them. And yeah, it's just evolved. They're almost 5 and 7 now. But yeah, it's I guess it's an important thing to me, just like movement in general and physical activity, all the benefits. And so yeah, I try to incorporate that into our daily life.
It's awesome. And so with your daughters, right? You have 2 daughters from what I see on socials.
Yeah, 2 daughters.
And so you guys move daily, don't you? I see some really cool games that you play with your daughters. What got you started playing some of those specific games and coming up with those ideas? They're really creative.
Yeah, so I think it all stems back to I found a guy named Jeremy Frisch. I don't know if you're familiar with him on Instagram. He's pretty popular on Instagram and Twitter, and he had a lot of cool movement ideas. So to give you a little bit of a background, I have a ice hockey training business. So I'm into kind of training, and a lot of everything's kind of moving towards younger and younger ages. And I was looking kind of for ideas because I'm always getting asked, parents of like 6, 7, 8-year-olds are looking for ideas. So I found his stuff and really just enjoyed how he made movement more fun and more enjoyable for young kids. So that's kind of where my journey kind of started. I saw his kind of how he approached training, and then I didn't want to think about it as training for my kids, but how can I make movement more fun for kids at younger ages? So that's kind of where it all started for me.
It's really cool. And hockey is one of those sports it requires a lot of fine motor and gross motor skills for kids while they're competing. So I think that's such an interesting sport to train. It balance, mobility. And I love that idea of how do we make a sport more play? So in my gym, when I work in my classroom, I always tell the kids we need to purposefully play. We need to just play. I mean, if we're not playing, I'm teaching too much or I'm giving too many instructions, I notice that I miss some things that they need to learn because they actually can teach us through play, sometimes more than we can teach them through instruction. So as a instructor, someone who does hockey, someone who's doing activities for your kids at home, I think one thing that a lot of dads that are listening to my podcast want to know is how can we as dads get started on a similar journey that you have? Where can we begin to play better, more intentionally with our kids at home? For me, I've got a 6-year-old, I've got a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, 3 daughters, and I want to play better with them. I want to have, sometimes we can't jump right in and do a bunch, but what's a really good starting point for dads?
Yeah, so a little shameless self plug here, but I came up with the product that I kind of wanted when I was kind of starting out as a dad. I had a few ideas in my mind, but I was always kind of thinking, what can we play next type of thing when it was time to play, and that kind of led to just maybe, I don't know, some stalling of figuring out what to do and whatever. I'm wasting a little bit of time. So I came up with my own. Well, first I started by documenting things on Instagram. Like I'm going to come up with some games here and I'm going to just film them and put them out to the world. And then I eventually came out with what I've got a play boost deck is what I call it. It's coming out here soon, but it's basically games that you can play with your kids at home. It can be as short as 5 minutes. It can be as long as 30 minutes. So I think just having some games in mind, whether you write them down, save them on Instagram, whatever it is, have a play boost deck in your back pocket, but having these ideas to play with, and then you kind of present them to your kids in a fun way, energetic. A lot of what I do with my young kids is imagination based. So if you can integrate some imagination into it, I think it makes a big difference. But I think the key thing for dads would be to have some games in mind that you can play and kind of bring out to them and show them. And I think pretty much every kid would love to play more. So just having those in your back pocket is
I love it.
key.
Having a card in your back pocket. It's a great phrase. I mean, it's so marketable. And as a dad even a dad that teaches phys ed, so I know how to help kids move, but sometimes when I get home, I feel stuck as a dad. Like, okay, what do I do? I don't want to be the phys ed teacher to my kids at home. I want to be
Yeah.
dad, so it's the idea that you have already created a curriculum in a way for dads to just say, all right, let me pull a card out of here, or even let the kid pull a card out of there, and then let's create the space together. I know for me, when I watched you play Ultimate Tag, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go try that, right? You have some cool spaces to play in, and I love seeing those spaces. And so I have a little bit of a smaller area, but I mean, you can play these games, and no matter what area you have, you can be creative with your space, creative with your stuff. And I know for me personally, I tried that game. I also tried the Stuffy Pirates game. All right. So we set it up around the entire house, which was pretty fun, and on our first floor. And we had the little Stuffy sitting on like the couch corners and different things. So I love your shameless plug, and I'm already using it, to be honest with you, with my daughters. So I appreciate it. Like, since I found you, I was like, okay, this guy is a kindred spirit who is giving me cool ideas. I'm going to rock them. And so I love that. And I think it's cool for dads who might be stuck, kind of like you said, working a 9 to 5, don't know how to play with their kids when they get home. We've already taken some of the guesswork out with these cards, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's the key, is just setting aside a set time to play, and then just having some ideas ready to go. Even if you come back to the same 3 or 4 games that your kids love, I'm just making sure you have something to
Now,
get
what
them
about if
moving.
you don't have equipment? What would be your suggestion, or how could we get access to some of the equipment that we see you using in some of your videos, or that we might want to try to use on our own?
Yeah, so a big question I get is about my mats. I have a lot of mats, and if you guys know anything about gymnastic mats, they're pretty expensive. So I try to make a lot of games that don't include a lot of equipment. Some things like colorful cones, small soft balls that kids can catch, throw, things that won't damage your house. Even things like just colored paper. So like I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but like we do red light, green light, and if you just have like a red piece of paper and a green piece of paper, something as simple as that, you can get a lot of games going with some very basic equipment.
And that's something I think a lot of dads, families too, find as a roadblock to play with their kids is, how do I, number one, how do I get the stuff that I need to play with them? But then number two is like, all right, how much time is it going to take to set up? And so kind of what I hear you saying is, It's really variable. I mean, you could go out and buy gymnastics mats if that's something that's in your price range for your kids, and you can put those in your basement or in a spare room, or maybe they have a space for that or a garage. I know I have a garage gym. And so in the summertime in Ohio, it's cold right now. It's very cold. So working out in the garage gym is, I do it, but it's not a good idea. And so the kids don't go out there. And I've got rings that hang from the ceiling in my garage. Now it's just a small garage, but when we pull the car out, we turn it into a play space and the neighbors come over and we work out and the kids play. And so like that's something we try to create as community. And so when it's warmer out, it's a lot easier, right? Because you can get out back, you can play, all those things. But I think a lot of dads are like, okay, what can I do to play inside? For me personally, just watching your videos gives us quick ideas. And I can say, all right, I might not have that, but I can do this. I have a green piece of paper. I have a red piece of paper. I like the one where you did the diamond heist and you have like, I think that was tape or something that you kind of set out or whatever. I don't know what the item was, but it was cool to kind of get your kids ducking and moving. So we could be creative using your ideas as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of games you don't even need equipment. So I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but we do like a prison break game where the adult pretend the dad or the mom or whoever it is pretends they're in prison and the kids are the prison guards. So you whatever it can be like a little space in your house. It could be closet. They put you in there and then you escape and they have to come like tackle you and drag you back. So they're working on it's obviously a lot of fun, but they're at the same time they're working on moving, running after you, grabbing you, hugging you, dragging you back, and you play along with it. And yeah, I think a lot can be done with no equipment. So you might see a lot of these Instagram videos and there's tons of equipment, but yeah, there are a lot of games you can play with your kids at home with very little equipment.
And if you listen to a lot of your stuff, you talk all the time about, hey, okay, so we have all of these doctors, all of these high level people telling us that kids need rough or a little bit rougher play to develop not only the musculoskeletal system that they have, but also that emotional component. And I'm big on that. You know, I write kids books for emotional wellness and emotional competitiveness. That's like my life mission and my life goal outside of teaching and coaching in terms of the professional life. But the emotional component of just that physical touch with your family and moving and playing, it just creates a bond. And I see that in my own daughters, and I hope to be better about that. I think the next thing I would love to talk about is, you know, I've taken a look at your Play Boost stuff. I've looked through all of your content that you have. You have kind of that outline for what Play Boost offers for parents for different things. I want to kind of spin the gears and talk about education for a minute. How could a phys ed teacher like me utilize some of the things that you have for kids? How could I do that in my gym starting as soon as tomorrow?
Yeah, so I don't have experience as a phys ed teacher, but I coach soccer and I do hockey with as young as 4 or 5 year olds. So I think what a lot of coaches get wrong is, or what I personally think, my opinion anyways, is that the skill, when you're teaching a sport, the skill aspect can come within play. A lot of times you'll see a lot of rigid drills that can be boring for kids. And I think there's a place for some of those drills, but we can use our imaginations more and make things more fun for groups of kids to teach them skills. So, for example, I'm trying to think of, I had a basketball one in mind, but I guess that's a little bit more for if you've got just one person. But
Yeah,
even
we
for
could do a
hockey,
station. We could do a station in the gym. So I set up my gym in like quadrants, so you could have a basketball station.
yeah, you could add the stations or like for, I'm just going to give you a soccer example because that's coming to mind here. If you want to teach your kids soccer skills, instead of maybe dribbling through cones, they can play a game where they're trying to get to the other side of we do like a crab soccer or whatever, or I forget what we call it, but the coaches, or you can set a couple kids are the crabs and the kids have to kind of dribble between the crabs and try to not get their ball taken from the crabs. So things like that, just group games. I do have some of those. For my card deck, I've tried to make it specifically for like parents and kids, but within my Instagram and stuff, you'll see like group games that you can play. So I think, yeah, I think for phys ed teachers, trying to use your imagination a little bit so you can teach different sporting techniques through play and through big games where the kids are having a lot of fun and they're learning at the same time. Sometimes they don't even realize that they're learning the skills.
I love that. So this week in my gym, I played a game called Pillow Polo, it's a lot like hockey. So the sticks are padded on the end and they're different colors so you can identify the teams. And the rules are very similar to like, it's kind of like floor hockey and and broom ball kind of mixed together, but it's on the gym floor. And we played in teams of 5 or 6 players, and the kids got to work on playing for a set amount of time. It was so much fun because we would like huddle up and we would talk. I love it. We'd play the music. We play the Chicago Bulls warm up music as they walked in, make them feel loved and cared about. And then we played, and we didn't really care about the outcome. Some of the kids still do, but a lot of them are, instead of thinking about the outcome, in my gym, I talk about expectations, energy, and effort as my 3 E's for PE. And that falls in directly to what you're talking about. And as a dad, is this idea of like, how can I get my kids just playing, right? So often we just say, all right, we're going to drill, drill, drill. And then they lose. And I know I did as a kid. I lost the love for soccer. I played soccer collegiately. I ran track collegiately. And I lost my love for those things when I was doing it. And I think a lot of it was because when you begin to drill, you definitely kill that passion. And so how can we play a game like Pillow Polo, or how can we play a game, whether it's basketball or a game where we go out and we play and then we talk about it after? So sometimes we overcoach kids, I think, in the middle of games, or we over drill them beforehand. So I love that idea of playing and then learning through that play. So, well, I think the next question I would have, as we talked about phys ed, we talked about being a dad. Let's kind of dive just a little bit more into your story. So as your kids are growing, right, as they're aging and they're going from one stage to the next, I know you talk about that up until about 10 years old, we talk through kids really need to play a lot. How do parents, as they begin to transition, I know you're not there yet and I'm not there yet, how do we keep this love for sport as our kids age and we get into the club sports era and we get into all of these different pressures that kids feel? How can we keep the same mindset and this idea of play as our kids age for any of our dads that might have older kids listening to this podcast?
Yeah, this is something I talk about with hockey parents. It's trying to get pressure-free environments for your kids to play in. So let's say you got a basketball player at home, maybe they're on a club team. What ways can we get them involved in some pressure-free situations? So maybe there's a 3-on-3 very casual rec league that they can play in the off season, or for hockey players, it's like pond hockey. Up here in Canada, we can skate on the ponds for usually a month or two. So we can get outside and play pond hockey where kids are just kind of forgetting about the scoreboard. They're forgetting about coaches yelling in their ears what to do, telling joystick coaching, which is a term I hear quite often, the coach telling them kind of exactly what to do when they have the puck on their stick, or if you're playing basketball, when you have the ball in your hands, your coach is basically telling you what to do. So these pressure-free environments get the kids playing and just having fun and kind of forgetting about everything else. And usually that's where a lot of the creativity comes from and a lot of the skill development. Yeah, I think that's extremely important if you've got a kid who's moving up the ranks maybe, or they're getting into more competitive sports, finding those times where they can just play and be a kid and not have to worry about results or coaches or anything like that.
That's important because we live in a very results driven sports culture, and it's really promoted. I know I'm sure in hockey, it's promoted a lot in soccer. The club sports for soccer is hard because we put kids in clubs from a very young age and we lose the rec version of them, the fun version, the joy in competing. And I don't think you have to lose that. I really don't. I think that we can keep that a lot longer. There's going to come a time when kids lose that at some point because the results do kind of inform them, because as you get older that you begin to understand. But I guess the question is, how can we as dads specifically stretch that time where they can enjoy it, and so that they have more emotional awareness in their bank account, so that then when they have those withdrawals, they can have enough in their system to say, I still love this game, right? I still love what I'm doing. I still love who I'm playing with. And I love that idea of joystick coaching. So just a little background on me. I've been coaching for 15 years. So I just recently stepped down to spend more time with my daughters at home, but I coached high school track. I was the head track coach at our high school, working with anywhere from 150 to 200 kids every year. And I also coach soccer. And I would often find myself checking myself saying, okay, Sean, you need to let them play, because I always want to fix everything. I'll see something. I'm sure you're like that with hockey. I'm like, oh no, I want you to avoid, and you end up overcoaching. So I would say, and maybe you could talk more on this, it's actually good to let those kids make a mistake, or to play with your kids in the backyard and kind of let them maybe even fall or experience that, to see how they can have the reaction to those failure moments in sport or life.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. With I've got a learn to play hockey group right now, and we kind of just show them, we kind of demonstrate the skills ourselves and kind of show them how to play the games or whatever, and then we just let them play. We don't even really say anything except for encouragement, like great job, good effort, that kind of thing. We let them fail like 100 times, and then finally they pick it up. So we might be playing an actual game of hockey, or we might be playing cops and robbers on the ice where they have to run or skate away and kind of turn left or turn right really quick, and they might try to turn left really quick and fall maybe 50, 100 times. before they figure out kind of their edge work on their own. So yeah, I'm big on just letting kids kind of fail a bunch and figuring things out on their own. And I feel like that's when you get the players who are very instinctive, like on the field, they can do something without thinking about it, and they don't have to think through all the steps, and it just happens out there. So I think it takes a little bit longer time, but I think letting kids fail through things and just kind of letting them figure things out on their own is extremely important.
Well, I think as coaches, I think we're afraid to let them fail because we feel the same pressure they do to make a successful team or to get a result. And I honestly hope some coaches would listen to this podcast as well and say, all right, I need to check myself here as a coach, as a dad. Because really, the cool part is, I love to say this, like right now, I feel like I'm my kid's coach some days and it's fun. My little daughters, like I don't want to be a kind of coach where they look at a coach like, oh, he's bossy or he just tells me what to do. I want them to see me like participating with them and failing with them. I pulled my hamstring last year playing with my kids. I mean, like it's funny, right? They thought it was hilarious. Now I'm in severe pain, realizing, oh my gosh, like I'm going too hard or whatever. But they need to also see us handle situations as well that might be good or bad, and see us kind of experience that range of emotions that being active brings out. So I don't know if you have any funny stories of playing with your daughters or with your teams where you've had a situation like that happen yet to you.
Not that I can think of off the top of the head. There's been a couple times where I might like stumble or fall on the ice when I'm demonstrating or teaching or playing a game, and yeah, just laughing it off and demonstrating, like, or even actually something I do that kind of relates to this is maybe when I'm demonstrating something, I'll screw up on purpose, but the kids don't know it's on purpose. And then I'll kind of explain like, oh, it's okay. I've been practicing hockey for 30 years and I still screw up too. So yeah, showing that side of things I think is important too, just like you said.
It's important. And then I think just like, even when I made the mistake reading the name, I tell my kids all the time, like I mess up so much more than I succeed. And yet I'm overall more successful than I'm not. So it's like teaching them that, yeah, I'm going to fall down. I'm going to fail. I love that idea of purposely like missing or failing. I'm going to integrate that into my dad life and my teacher life. Because sometimes I think as dads and teachers, we feel like we can't fail, or that the kids need to see us as like perfect in a way or like an example, but we actually teach them more by failing than we do by succeeding oftentimes. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I think so. So the way I got this idea was, I don't even know where I had first heard of this, but it was when you're writing out your name or when you're spelling something in front of your kid when they're learning to spell. Sometimes it's okay to like make a mistake, even though we know how to spell a simple word, make a mistake, cross it out, and then just keep going. Don't even say anything, and they kind of see you do that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, mistakes happen," that type of thing. So
What's
yeah.
important, because I know as a kid, I grew up and I was not a good speller. That's just a funny example, but I could run really fast. So I think sometimes as kids, we identify with what we're good at. And sometimes we need to be cautious as dads to really do things we're not good at. So for example, if I'm playing in the backyard, maybe I can throw better than I can kick, or maybe I can kick better than I can throw. So like showing them like, oh, I'm going to kick with my left foot. I'm going to kick with my right foot. It's like kind of teaching them from a young age that you need to try hard things, right? And I think what your athletic development games does for me is it gives me an idea of like, okay, I'm looking at Kevin playing with his kids. And in a good way, it's challenging Sean, the dad, to say, okay, if Kevin's out there doing this, Sean's going to get out there and do this. And so I think what I would like to kind of talk about for the last, 5-10 minutes, I like to keep them about 30 minutes so that we can respect our time and the dad's time listening to this, or the family or the mom. We have lots of different people. We have athletes that listen to this. We have coaches. I wanted to keep it short so people don't get, bored or we go on too many tangents. But this is really where I want to focus in on is how can we as dads continue to set an example in our own life for our kids? So how do we stay fit? How do we stay healthy? Do you have any like wellness advice for dads so that we can stay able to do these things with our kids for a long period of time?
Yeah, I would say extremely important is to have your own physical hobby. It could be a sport, like I play hockey and tennis. Just took up tennis a couple of years ago. It could just be a hobby like biking or hiking or skiing or snowboarding, something you can do solo. That's also nice to have as an adult. If maybe you can't find a couple people to play 3-on-3 basketball or whatever, but you can go for a bike ride. So I think having a hobby, something that you enjoy that can get you moving and active and staying fit. And then I think kind of tying into the dad thing or the mom thing is setting aside time to play with your kids with these physical movement based type games. So I think if you can set yourself 15 minutes a day to play these games, you'll often find that your heart rate's getting up there. It's just a 15-minute burst of energy. So you might have maybe did a workout in the morning, but maybe you haven't done a workout for 3 days and you just get these 15-minute bursts. And that will help you more than people think if you're doing that consistently. And explain to your kids the importance of physical movement and physical play, and tell them that you want to play with them every day for at least 15 minutes, and they'll hold you accountable to that for sure. So yeah,
I
those are a
love
few
that.
tips there.
Yeah, my 6-year-old, she forgets where she put her shoes, but she doesn't forget if I told her I was going to do something. So I feel like that's perfect. It's like you have your built-in alarm system in your kids to say, I'm going to play with you today. And sometimes the most stressful words for a dad is, hey, daddy, will you play with me? Because we have so much emotion and so much fatigue. I mean, I get done teaching some days and I hear that and I'm like, okay, this is like I'm getting ready for the 400 dash. I got to get ready. I got to get mentally prepared. And I think the more we do it, the more we practice our own health and wellness, the better our kids are going to, they're going to see in us a person who wants to play with them. And I think a lot of dads want to do it, but number one, they don't know how. And I think you've really paved a way for us as dads with your card deck. I love that idea. You also have a thing that I subscribe to as well, which is like a free thing that you can just log into and you'll send an email just to kind of get you started. So maybe you could talk about how we could get started as dads following what you're doing, because what you're saying is absolutely, I think, not only amazing, but I think it's life-changing. And maybe a dad hearing this today can get started playing the way they want to with their kids.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I have two Instagram accounts, Athletic Development Games and Play Boost. So if you follow those, you'll get some ideas of the types of games we play. I've got some links in the profile there. What you'll see, like I've got a Play Boost HQ with some more games. And then I've got that card deck, which is on pre-order, but it should be shipping out pretty soon. I should have that in hand, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But yeah, those resources. And then, yeah, you might find other accounts on Instagram. You can check who I follow on those accounts, because I usually follow some people that have some good ideas for games. I think the key thing is with these games, I've tried to create them to be the games that parents want to play. So as a dad, I know like I'm exhausted sometimes after work. I've got like 5 things to do around the house and that's on my mind. So I don't want to play. But if you've got a game that you actually enjoy, that you can kind of present to your kids, then once you get started, you're going to be all in for that 15 minutes or whatever amount of time you set aside. So I think that's important too, is these games I've tried to make them pretty fun for the dad as well, because I know how tiring it can be after a long day of work. You don't want to play, but once you get into these and you kind of get your imagination going as well, it can be a lot of fun.
And I think 15 minutes is a manageable time. And really, I think a lot of dads, the issue that they don't play is because they don't have a time frame. So as a phys ed teacher, I have that built into my brain. I have 40-minute classes. I have them set into blocks. And so I have a little bit of a predisposition to understanding that. So I think what you're doing is kind of breaking down the wall of like, okay, you put a time frame on it, play a specific game. And honestly, if you have one game you really like, play it for a long time. Like play that game for a few days in a row or more. And really then you can kind of let your kid drive some of the conversation, and you could talk about it in the morning before you leave. Hey, we're going to play this game tonight. And then they can think about that during their free space in their brain. And you can think about that. And it can kind of maybe take up some of the clutter that our brains have day in and day out, and maybe help with stress relief for both you and your kid to have something to look forward to. Would you agree that that can kind of help break some of the stress that we feel daily as dads, to have that as a plan?
Yeah, I think having a set time is really helpful. And I think, yeah, just having a daily routine, you can make it as close to daily as possible, I think is very beneficial for you and the child. Just getting that connection time is really important. A lot of games are ending in hugs and cuddles and laughs and that kind of thing. So that's really important. One thing I wanted to add while you were talking, I just thought about it. We like to do a 20-minute play period because we've got 4 in our family. So we each get 5 minutes. We each pick our favorite game. So I think that's a cool way to do it too. If you've got one kid and you got a mom and a dad playing, you got 15 minutes there. You get each 5 minutes for each game. Sometimes one game might run over. If you guys are having a lot of fun, that's okay too. But that's a cool way because everyone gets a choice for a game that they like to play. So my kids might pick something that I don't really love as much, and then I get to pick the one that I really love. So I think that's a good way to do it.
It's cool. And I like to have like whiteboards and stuff. That's one thing I enjoy. And I have my kids write things down on it. So I think I'm going to take your idea and have a little whiteboard that we can write the games down and work on some literacy stuff too, because I like the idea of integrating learning together for our kids. Even if you're a homeschool parent as well, I think that's a really cool addition as well. Or if you have a kid that's going to, school all day and then they're coming home, kind of having your own fun version of school with your kid, where they can kind of be the teacher in a way, is so much fun. Our daughters, actually, before we got on this call, we did our gymnastics mats in the here in the basement. We got a few of them. They're they're not high quality, but they're good enough for us right now. And then my daughters like to like make me play food. It ended with that. So like on my table right now, I was kind of worried I'm going to knock it over with my hands. There's pretend coffee and pretend food and things. And they love to be in control of those things. And so the more control we can give to our kids, the better it is. And if they make a game up and then daddy has to play it and daddy fails at the game, I don't think there's anything better for the kid. They're going to love seeing that, like, because maybe they're even better at that game than we are. So I love that idea. And that for parents was 5 minutes per person in your family to choose a game to play. And I love the concept that you brought there. I feel like we have some really good tangible takeaways for listeners that would be listening in today. And hopefully they can see in us two imperfect dads who are just trying to learn how to play better with our kids and maybe not be so stressed all the time. I don't know about you, but as a dad, I absolutely feel stress and pressure to be really perfect. And I know that's silly. And that's really why I started this podcast is how can we just have calls with dads who know a little bit more than I do or other people do in certain areas. So Kevin, I really appreciate you bringing your knowledge of physical movement, physical play, and giving us some tangible takeaways. So you've already given our listeners 2 accounts that they can find you on. So if we go find you on these accounts, we can go to PlayBoost, we can get some of these things that you have. What would be step 1 for a dad? So today, hey, I want to go play with my kids. I listen to Sean, I listen to Kevin. I'm not able to really log into socials or do anything. What would be a step 1 game that we could end our podcast with that you and I could go play right after we get off this call with our kids? That would be the best game you could think of.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it classic. Hopefully everyone knows these games. I think a lot of people will. Just red light, green light, or what time is it, Mr. Wolf? My kids will come back to those 2 a lot, and they're very basic. You can do them in a small hallway. You can do them outside. I think those 2 would be good ones. And especially what time is it, Mr. Wolf? And you end the game off chasing them down, giving them a big hug. I think that's a good starting point.
All right, quickly tell us the game. What time is it, Mr. Wolf? Let's end with that because I want to hear it so I can go play it.
Sure. What time is it, Mr. Wolf? You've got the wolf at one end. Start with the parent maybe, and then do the role reversal. The kid can be the wolf. They yell, "What time is it, Mr. Wolf?" You yell a number between 1 and 12. So you could yell 6 o'clock. They take 6 steps towards you. You've got your back turned to them. "What time is it, Mr. Wolf?" They yell it again. 5 o'clock. They take 5 steps towards you. As soon as you hear their voices getting closer and closer, at any time when they ask what time it is, you yell dinner time or lunchtime or supper time. I've heard it all different versions. You turn around and they have to run back to the starting line and you have to chase them back there.
Oh, I love it. It's a pursuit game. I love pursuit games because kids need to learn how to run away with their eyes. I always say, eyes where you go, and by a wall, oh no, because I always talk about if you go by the wall, it's always going to end bad for everybody around you. So I love that. So we can teach those skills with my daughters. All right, because you got to put your eyes where you go. I love that game. So we're going to play that one today. We'll definitely clear out some space, and I think the kids can play that inside too. And I think I could use that one in my gym as well. I feel like my K2 gym would love that game. We could start on one end of the baseline and do the very same thing with I use pool noodles a lot in the gym for tagging with kids just to help, safety wise until they learn how to tag safely. So I feel like that could be really cool. The tagger could have the pool noodle and we could work on pursuit. You gave me an idea for next week's gym class, so I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, Kevin, we're over 30 minutes here, so I want to end our podcast. Do you have any final words for any dads today or who might be excited about getting started or might be nervous about moving with their kids?
I'd say just, do your best. Just 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you have, start with that and pick a few easy games that you can introduce them to and just have fun with it.
Awesome. All right, dads. Well, you heard it from Kevin. Get started today. It takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes to move with your kids. Don't overthink it and don't underthink it as well. Moving with your kids is the most important thing you can do today. So, Kevin, I appreciate your time and coming on the Just Call Dad podcast and jumping in on the mission, which our goal here at the Just Call Dad podcast is creating a team of dads who's helping other dads be just a call away, whether that's physically or mentally or emotionally, just being there for our kids. And there is no better way to be there for your kid than to move meaningfully with them. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Just Call Dad. If you're not having a good day right now, stop, pause, take a deep breath, and take 5. And realize you can have a good day and it starts right.
Oh, I just got a call. Oh, not really. Hey, thanks for listening to Just Call Dad. It really started with that idea of what happens when I get that call, whether it's my daughter who can't sleep, Dad, I need you, or whether it's that call on my phone that I just get that antsy feeling. And this is the reality, guys. We are here to help you. Just Call Dad is all about that concept of creating better dads, better humans, better athletes, better people who are more equipped to exist in this world without the need to search for others' approval, or without the need to search for that outcome-based feeling of success. Instead, we want to create a culture and an expectation where you drive your own learning. You drive your own life. Okay, let's take back life today from worry. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you've made it this far, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Strive Studio. And also, please take a look at socials. Please give us a like, give us a follow, share this message with somebody who needs it today. We truly believe we can help one dad, one person, one athlete at a time. We can help the world. All right, thanks again for tuning in to today's episode of Just Call Dad. If you're not having a good day, remember how we started. Stop and pause. Better yet, praise. Praise the person you are on the way to where you want to go today.